Welcome to your online lesson today. We're going to look at developing your skills in drawing isometric. So you will need your tin, okay? I've gone for some baked beans with meat-free sausages. I'll be having this for my lunch today. You will also need a sheet of paper, around A4 size. Hopefully you remember your isometric paper, but if not, if you've got one of these in a maths set, that'll be fine as well. You're also going to need a pencil, a pen, and some colouring pencils, and then we will begin. So first thing you'll need to do is measure across the diameter of your tin, so it's round that up to 80 millimeters, and then also the height, so round that up to 11. So I've placed the plain paper over the top of the isometric paper, and the first line I'm going to draw is relatively close to the bottom. I can just about see the grid through, so I'm just going to draw a vertical line up the middle of the page. Then, following the lines on the grid, I'm going to create almost like an arrow pointing towards myself, with each line that I'm drawing 40 millimeters. Then I'm going to go up from there. This is the only time when you really have to be careful and make sure that you're following the grid lines. So now that I've got those lines pointing up, I now can join up this part here. Again, following any grid lines that you've got already. Then we move in a different direction and create a diamond on the top. So I know that that looks rectangular at the moment, but now I'm going to show you how you round it off. So inside this top diamond here, you want to create yourself a oval or ellipse shape. It helps if you have your tin nearby so you can look at it. Then you want to do the same at the bottom. What you can then do is you can get rid of all these lines at the top and in the middle, because they were just construction lines. Okay, so once you've rubbed out your construction lines, you can start to sort of firm up the top of your tin, the bottom of your tin, like so. And then you can start to add in details. So there's a small lip here at the top and the bottom. So I would get that added in straight away. At this point, I would say that you can just eyeball the measurements. Then you can start to add in some design features so that we know what you're drawing. So the biggest clue is going to be your ring pull at the top and some of the detail, the little ridges that you find. Then you can start to also add in the design. Try not to press too hard, because that will affect the overall quality if you've got to rub anything away. So I'm just going to put that little baked bean in there that's also there as a little guide. Now, marking out the middle is going to be handy for adding any text. So I always start, when I'm doing any bubble writing, in the middle and working my way out from there. You might want to use a little bit of creative license at this point, as you may not be able to create like the perfect bubble writing, but that's fine. And I'm also not going to put the really small text in at the moment either. So I'm going to just start to really lightly rough out where the beans and sausages are. So looking at the tin, you're going to need a good few colours if you want to do a really good job with your rendering. I've made sure that I've got myself 2 greens, I've got a black, an orange, a yellow and sort of a peachy colour so that I can pick up some of the details on here. So we'll start with the top and the bottom, so the little tin plated lid and base. I'm going to use a black pencil rather than just a drawing pencil, just because that will give me a little bit more tone. If you have a grey colouring pencil, that will obviously be ideal, but I don't have one. It's mainly, you can use it using the point or the side of the lead just to get the details in. If you hold the pencil at the end, you're able to press a little bit lighter, and because you're doing a cylinder, you want to make sure that you're going in real circular motions, because that will help with it looking round. You also want to look at where the light is shining. Light often shines like from the top, so it might be that you want to do a little bit darker on this edge and actually leave yourself a pretty much white bit here, and I'll probably do the same at the bottom. So the part where it impacts the table, that will be quite a lot darker. So this is probably the most important thing that you need to master with this, and that's doing your sort of background colour. So I'm going to start off with this green, which is handily quite close to what I've got. Now I'm holding the pencil right at the end, and I'm going to put my ruler on the edge so I don't make a mess. And it's important that you have your pencil going this way. If you go up and down, you won't be helping your work look round. So I'm just going to do a base colour all over. And as you get to wider bits, you can start to go across. Just be careful not to smudge it too much on anywhere where you might have pressed a little bit hard. And once you've got coverage all over, which I very nearly have, you can start to add in some tone, so you can start to press a little bit harder. So when I look, it's actually a bit darker at the top here and sort of around where the border section is, so you can press a little bit harder to sort of blend the tones together. Not forgetting to do this little bit in the middle. So at this point you might want to hold your pencil slightly differently, holding it a little bit more like a pen so that you can get in and do all the details, but try and press as lightly as you can. Good, so as I said, once you've got your base colour in, you can start to then press a little bit harder around all the letters as it looks on the actual tin. And then we can start to add our darker green to get some highlights and lowlights going on. And press really lightly to start with, it's harder to rub out colouring pencils. Okay, good. So moving on to the orange, that's just one flat colour. But what you can do is press harder in some areas, particularly where it joins to other colours, and that will make it stand out a little bit more. I've deliberately left the trickiest bit until last, which is the beans themselves. Okay, so for the beans and sausages I actually need 3 colours so that I'm able to pick up all the different tones and textures. So make sure your pencils are nice and sharp. I'm actually going to start with the red, and that's what I'm going to use to go all to do the background and to start sort of going around the edges of the sausages and beans. So I'm using round circular motions because they are 3D round things after all. And you can vary the pressure that you're applying. So next up's the yellow. Again, I'm being careful not to cover the whole thing, just sort of doing round motions to make things look nice and round. Now onto the cream. Not so much of this. They are starting to look a little bit beany, which is strange considering we have not used any orange yet. So now the orange, and what I'm going to do is we're just going to shade really lightly over the top of that whole section. And that brings those beans to life. Okay. So just a few finishing touches, using your different colours, creating a little bit of tone here and there. What you can then do to finish it off completely is use a fine line pen. If you don't have one of these, don't worry, this is just an optional extra to make things stand out. So you can just use that to go around the edge of what you've drawn and make the features stand out. This is particularly good for if you want to add some writing. Don't forget to use a ruler for the straight lines. I'm actually going to use it to outline my details as well. You can add in some details. And that's that. And here is one I made earlier. Bon appetit.